Hello, and welcome again to our class, where we answer our next question. Our question for this week that we will learn how to answer is, how is your family? Let's begin. First, let's review our Bible verse for this semester. Here are the translations. And let's go ahead and read this Bible verse aloud together. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah 40:31. Since we are going to learn how to ask, how is your family? We need to first learn about our family members. What are they called? So here is a tree, or a family tree, so that you can see what we call different people in our family. We're going to make the assumption that one of these is you. So you are either the husband or the wife. You are the person in the middle. There are two kinds of subcategories for family. There is immediate family and there is extended family. First, let me explain who is in your immediate family. In your immediate family, you have your father, you have your mother, you have your brother and your sister. Your husband and wife is also in your immediate family. Your daughter or your son. These are all people that are considered in your immediate family. Your father, mother, brother, sister, husband or wife, daughter, and son. In your extended family, these are the people outside of your immediate family, people that are a little further away from you, maybe in relationships. There are different kinds of people. There is your grandfather. This is your father's father or your mother's father. There's also your grandmother. So this is your father's mother or your mother's mother. We then have your uncle, which will be either your father's brother or your mother's brother. So remember, we're pretending here that we're right here. We're either the husband or the wife here. So it's our father's or our parents' brother is our uncle. Or your aunt. So this could be your mother's sister or your father's sister. There's also your cousin. So this is your uncle and your aunt's children, is your cousin. Then there is your niece. This is your brother or sister's daughter. So if your brother gets married and has a daughter, then they are your niece. Or if your sister gets married and has a daughter, they are your niece. The next is a nephew. This is if your brother or sister gets married and has a son. We call him a nephew. Then there is grandson. Grandson is if your children grow up, get married, and have a son. they are your grandson. For example, your grandfather and grandmother is up here. You are considered their grandson or their granddaughter, which is next. The granddaughter, your granddaughter, is your children's daughter. Let's explain a little bit of information about relationships and names that we call. If we have the mother and the father, we call them parents. This is the word parents. They have children. If it is just one, we call them child. They have one child. But if they have more than one, like this has 4, we call them children. These are the parents, and these are the children. We can also call these the kids. So this is a child, these are the children, or these are the kids, and these are the parents. Another relationship to know is siblings. Siblings. Siblings means your brothers and sisters. For example, if you look at here, these are the relationships. David is Bob's sibling. Dave and Bob are brothers, so they are siblings. All of these 4 children, Sally, Liz, Bob, and Dave, are siblings because they are brothers and sisters. They come from the same parents. Now let's explain some older versus younger. So here, David is the first child. So Dave is older than Bob, Sally, and Liz. Sally here is younger than Bob and Dave. Older means their age is older. They were born first. Younger means they were born later. Examples. Bob is Liz's older brother. So Bob was born before Liz, and Bob is Liz's brother. So we say Bob is Liz's older brother. Liz here is the youngest. She is the younger sister. Liz is Dave's younger sister. Liz is also Sally's younger sister and Bob's younger sister. Let's do some practice. Let's fill in these blanks. This is me, or us, we'll pretend. Here is our younger brother. Here is our older sister. Let's start here and go up. Who would this be? Looking at this box, we can choose to see who it would be. Pause the video and try to figure this out for yourself before I go over the answers. Great! Now that you've attempted to fill it out for yourself, let's go over the answers. Here is our younger sister. So we can cross out younger sister. Here is our older brother. So we can cross out older brother. Next is our father, because remember, these are all siblings, brothers and sisters. Here's the father. Here is the mother. Here is the aunt, or some people say aunt. Here is the uncle. Here is the cousin, Remember, the cousin is your uncle or aunt's children. Then we have the grandfather and the grandmother. Let's do some more practice. Looking at this family tree, we are going to answer some questions. Peter is Will's what? What relationship does Peter and Will have? So first we find Peter. Here is Peter. Let's find Will. Will is here. Peter had Jack. Jack is Peter's child. Then Jack got married and had Will. That means Peter is Will's grandfather. Pause the video and see if you can answer the rest of the questions before you see me reveal the answers. Great, now let's go ahead and fill out the rest of these answers. Amy, right here, is Kate's what? Aunt or aunt. Amy is Kate's aunt. Amy is Kate's aunt. Next one. Laura, up here, is Tim's grandmother. Because Peter and Laura had Mark. Mark got married to Sally and had a child. So Laura is Tim's grandmother. Next one, Jack. Jack is someone's father. Jack had Will and Sarah. So Jack is Sarah's father, or Jack is Will's father, or you can say Jack is Sarah and Will's father. Will and Sarah, these two right here, are what? They are siblings. Let's answer. Here, Tim and Will are, here is Tim, and here is Will. Tim and Will are cousins. Pause the video and see if you can finish the rest of these questions on your own. Okay, great. Now let's go over the answers. Kate is Jack's what? Here is Kate. Kate is Jack's. Jack's right here. So Jack and Kate have what relationship? Kate is Jack's niece because Jack and Mark are brothers. So when Mark got married and had Kate, Jack got a niece. Jack is Kate's uncle. Kate is Jack's niece. Next one, Will is Sally's nephew. Because Jack and Amy had a child, had Will, and Jack and Mark are brothers, Mark and Sally, here, the relationship with Will is their nephew. Next one, Jack is whose brother? Jack is Mark's brother. See here? Jack is Mark's brother. Amy is Mark's what? Amy is Mark's sister-in-law. Because Mark and Jack are brothers, Jack married Amy, so Amy is Mark's sister-in-law. Pause the video and do these last four by yourself before I go over the answers? Great. Let's now go over the answers. Sally is Sarah's what? Sally here and Sarah have what kind of relationship? Sally is Sarah's aunt, or Sally is Sarah's aunt. Next one. Who is Amy's mother-in-law? Amy is right here. Amy's mother-in-law is her husband's mother. So Amy's husband's mother is Laura. Laura is Amy's mother-in-law. Next one. Who is Jack's father? Here is Jack. Jack's father is Peter. Peter is Jack's father. Last one. Mark is whose son? Mark is whose son? You can say Mark is Laura's son, or Mark is Peter's son. You can say both of those. Mark is Laura's son, or Mark is Peter's son. Now let's answer some questions about this family tree. The first question is, does Kelly have kids? We find Kelly here. This is Kelly, but it does not look like she has any kids. So you can say no, Kelly does not have any kids. You can also say how many Kelly does not have any children. Both are okay. Let's look at the next question. How many kids does Daniel have? Let's find Daniel. Daniel is right here. Daniel got married to Sally. And so now Daniel and Sally, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. Daniel has 5 kids, or Daniel has 5 children. Practice some dialogue. Let's look here. Is this the father? Looking at the circled one, is this the father? We respond, no, this is the mother. Let's look at this one. Is this the aunt? Or is this the aunt? Yes, this is the aunt. Or yes, this is the aunt. We can practice asking these questions. Is this the grandmother? No, this is the cousin. Or is this the younger brother? Yes, this is the younger brother. Pause the video and spend some time practicing asking aloud and answering aloud the question, is this the, and then fill in the blank with uncle, aunt, father, older brother. And is this the, here, and then answering, no, this is the, and yes, this is the. Here's another way you can ask questions. If you look at a picture, you can have the dialogue, who is this? This person responds, this is my grandfather, right here. This is my grandfather. What's his name? We know how to ask, what is his name? She responds, his name is Gustavo. So I want you to go, we're going to read this conversation aloud one more time, and then I want you to pause the video and practice reading this aloud and practicing with people you know. Who is this? This is my grandfather. What's his name? His name is Gustavo. So now I want you to get out pictures of your family and explain it. Point to people and explain who they are. Who is this? This is my. What's his or her name? His or her name is. Pause the video and practice until you feel comfortable asking and answering these questions. Here's another dialogue. Who's that? That's my, and you can fill it with daughter, uncle, nephew, or anybody in your family. That's my daughter. That's my uncle. That's my nephew. Then the next part is what's her name or what's his name. You can say his name is, and then you say their name, or her name is, and then you say their name. He or she lives in, and then you say the city, state, or country. So you have who's that? That's my, and then you say your family member. What's his or her name? His or her name is, and then you say the name. He or she lives in, and then you say where they live. Let's have some practice dialogues or some examples. Example, you can say, who's that? That's my son. What's his name? His name is Tommy. He lives in Sterling. Let's read that aloud together. Who's that? That's my son. What's his name? His name is Tommy. He lives in Sterling. So here's the basic dialogue that you will fill out the blanks with. Fill out the blanks with people in your family. That's my nephew. That's my father. That's my grandmother. That's my grandson. Then you can say, what's his name? What's her name? Then you can say, her name is Sally. His name is Tommy. He or she lives in Virginia. He lives in Texas. She lives in Germany. Pause the video and practice saying this aloud with people in your family. Here is some extra practice. I will not explain all of the answers, but I highly recommend for you to pause the video and fill out the answers. Once you pause the video and finish filling out the answers, you can start the video again and I will give you the answers. So now pause the video and fill it out. Great! Now that you've paused the video and filled out these answers, I'm going to show you the answers to see if you got them correct. Because our time is short, I don't have time to explain these answers. If you have questions, you may ask me. You can text me. But here are the answers. Did you get them all correct? Another practice where I will not explain the answers, but you need to pause the video and write out the answers yourself. Then unpause the video to play the video, and I will give you the answers. So right now, pause the video and fill in the answers. Great, now that you have filled out all of the answers, let me give you the answers. Did you get them all correct? If you have questions, please ask me. Another practice for you that I will not explain, but here you're going to look at this chart and you're going to answer these questions. Okay? So pause the video, and once you answer those questions, play the video and I will give you the correct answers. Now that you have circled your own answers, compare them with the answers here. Did you get them all correct? Here is another practice dialogue. Looking at this photo, we have someone here, Tuan, showing Joe a picture of his family. Tuan says, "Who's that?" Joe says, "That's my son." Tuan says, "What's his name?" Joe says, "His name is Tony. He lives in Florida." Tuan says, "How tall is he?" Joe says, "He is 5 feet and 3 inches tall." "How old is he?" "He is 10 years old." Let's read that dialogue aloud together. Who's that? That's my son. What's his name? His name is Tony. He lives in Florida. How tall is he? He's 5 feet and 3 inches tall. How old is he? He's 10 years old. Pause the video and practice repeating this dialogue until you feel comfortable asking and answering these questions. Here is a blank dialogue where you can fill in your own information. Who's that? That's my. What's his name? His name is. He lives in. How tall is he? He's feet and say a number, inches tall. How old is he? He's 3 years old. He's 25 years old. Use this template to practice answering and asking questions about your own family members or other people's family members. Here is some extra practice. This is in your Step Forward book on page 83. Practice reading through this dialogue so that you can, until you feel comfortable answering and asking these questions. Who's that? How old is she? What's his name? Here's some more practice. Looking at these People, we have their names and we have where they are from or where they live. For example, her name is Tia. Right here, her name is Tia. She lives in Colorado. Let's look at someone else. Let's look at Phil. His name is Phil. He lives in North Carolina. Here is the basic template. He or her name, his or her name is, and then you say the name. He or she lives in, here. Use this picture and this information to practice saying these sentences. Pause the video so that you can practice saying sentences using Maria, who lives in Montana, and this is John, that lives in Maine. Pause the video and practice until you feel comfortable with these sentences. Here is some more extra practice. Pause the video and fill out the answers. Then play the video and I will give you the correct answers. Now that you have figured out or written down your own answers, take a look at the answers below. Let's look at some of these questions. What family members live in your home? You can answer this with different family members. You can say my father, my son, my daughter, my husband, or my wife. These people live in my home with me. What other family members live in this country? This means they do not live in your home. They may not live in Virginia or this state, but they live in the United States of America. You can answer this with my daughter, or my grandson, or my niece. Last question. What family members live in other countries? Where? These are people in your family that do not live in the United States of America. You can say, my father, my mother, my aunt, or my aunt, my nephew. So here's the first question. What family members live in your home? What other family members live in this country? What family members live in other countries? Where? Pause the video and practice asking and answering these questions until you feel comfortable. For example, here, let's have a practice dialogue. Does your blank or what live at your home? You can say, no, my blank lives in somewhere else. For example, does your mother live at your home? No, my mother lives in California. Let's look at some more examples. Does your son live in Houston? No, my son lives in Herndon. Does your grandfather live in the United States? No, my grandfather lives in France. Notice how you can answer this question with a city like Herndon, with a country like United States or France, or a state like Texas or Florida or Virginia or California. You can do it with a city, a country, or a state. Practice this, pause the video and practice this dialogue until you feel comfortable asking and answering these kinds of questions. Another practice dialogue is, do you have a family member? Yes, I have. Or, do you have a family member? And no, I do not have. For example, do you have children? Yes, I have 3 children. Do you have siblings or brothers and sisters? No, I do not have siblings. So you want to practice this dialogue asking these types of questions. Do you have children? Yes, I have 3 children. Do you have siblings? No, I do not have siblings. Now look at a real life example where you might have to fill out this information. Many times you may have to tell someone who your emergency contact person is. This means in case maybe something happens to you, like maybe you get sick and you have to go to the hospital, or something happens to you and they need to call or contact someone. You will fill out your emergency contact information. So for example, the name here is Eric Wong. The emergency contact information means if Eric Wong, if something happens to him, and if he gets sick and has to go to the hospital, then he's telling people to contact Jill Wong, who is his wife. You have to say your relationship to that person, or this person's relationship to you. This means that Jill and Eric are married. And then you give the phone number. So for example, here are 3 other examples where Colin Ward, his emergency contact information is Kelly Gomez, and who is his sister. So Kelly is Colin's sister. Here, Maria Kane, she put down Paul Kane, who is her father. Paul is Maria's father. Let's look at an example of this form. David Smith is writing down Lindsay Smith. Lindsay is David's mother. And then they give the phone number. Let's look at another form for asking information for the emergency contact information. Here is an example that you might have to fill out. Here you would write your first name, your last name, then you would say, who is your emergency contact name? If you get hurt or if something happens to you, who do they contact? So you could write your wife's name, your husband's name, your father's name, anybody. Then you have to explain the relationship to the employee, or the relationship is how are they related to you? Are they your father? Are they your mother, your wife, your daughter, your husband, or your son? Then you write down their phone number. Here is some extra practice. Look in your textbook Step Forward on page 86, and you can fill out this chart by looking at this picture. Now let's answer the question, how are you feeling? For example, Joni says, "Hi Allison, how are you feeling?" Allison says, "I'm fine. How are you feeling?" Joni responds, I'm sick. Allison says, oh, I'm sorry. So we're going to ask the question, how are you feeling? And you can say, I'm sick. Let's look at some possible responses for the question, how are you feeling? So here are some examples of ways you can answer the question, how are you feeling? You can say, I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm sad, I'm tired, or I'm sick. Let's look at an example. Thomas says, hi, Alex. How are you feeling? Alex says, I did not eat lunch, so I am hungry. How are you feeling? Thomas says, I'm excited. Today is my birthday. Alex says, oh, happy birthday. Pause the video and practice reading this dialogue until you feel comfortable. Here are some ways you can answer the question, how is your family? We just learned how to answer the question, how are you feeling? Here are some examples on how to answer, how is your family? The first example is, my sister is tired. You can say, my children are hungry. My parents are sick. We are fine. My brother is sad. My grandmother is excited. My nephew is thirsty. These are some different ways to answer the question, how is your family? Look at some dialogues. Samuel says, hi, Rick. How is your family? Rick says, my sister is sick today. Samuel says, oh, that's too bad. Let's look at another example. Shelley says, how is your family? Victoria says, my husband is very tired. He has been very busy lately. Practice reading these dialogues until you feel comfortable with asking and answering the question, how is your family? Let's look at your homework. Your homework for this week is to text me telling me about your family. Do you have children? Do you have a husband or wife? Where do your father and mother live? Where do your uncle and aunt live? Example, I want a text that looks like this. I have 2 children. Their names are George and Betsy. My husband's name is Frank. Notice these are information about your family, about your children, and about your husband. Another example of what you can text me about information. You can say my mother and father live in Vietnam, or my aunt and uncle live in Maryland, or my aunt and uncle live in Maryland. So text me information about your family, whether it be about your children, or your wife or husband, or your aunt and uncle, or your mother and father. Text me information to practice talking about your family. Homework is to find a video online that talks about talking about family in English. For example, I found this one that I thought was good. So you can find this one or another one, and I want you to watch it for more practice of who your family members are and how to talk about them in English. I hope you understand how to talk about your family now and how to ask, how is your family? This week, practice asking your friends or your family members, how are you? How is your family? Talk about, this is my brother. Practice explaining who your family is. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a good week.